And I'm not saying it's easy. There's times when it's hard, and I don't mean to be flippant about it, but
Mhm.
what's the alternative? Not good. So that's where I said at the beginning of this part of the conversation, you got to decide what you want.
Yeah. Welcome to another enlightening episode of Mirror Talk Sofa Conversations. I'm Toby, and as always, it's my joy to share this space with you. Today, we'll be diving deep into finding connections in a disconnected world and building healthy relationships. Our guest is a relationship coach, a leader to leaders, author, cyclist, and a pastor. Welcome to the show, Keith. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Toby. It's good to be here. I'm doing great.
Awesome. I'm so glad we finally connected. And, I'm happy that you're on the show. And I'm feeling so much energy coming from you all the way from the United States. And yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking with you and learning so much about your life journey. I just heard you came back from Kenya some days ago. How was
Yep.
it like for you being to my mother's land, basically? I'm in Africa.
Oh, I love Africa. It was a great trip and a good time reconnecting with friends and making some new friends. And I was speaking at a conference for leaders, and it was really, really good time.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the fact that you travel around and you help people, you preach also and help people with their relationships and help. I'll send pictures of you on Instagram. Just I follow you on Instagram. I saw you on farmlands, for example, planting and helping in the rural areas. I find that really, really amazing. That's awesome.
Oh, I love it. I
Yes.
love it. And I love cycling too. It's a lot of fun.
Do you cycle? Yeah, I can see pictures behind you. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
also cycling pictures basically. You do that, you've been to France. You've done the Tour de France before.
I have not. I want to. It's on my bucket list.
Please do it. That'll be nice. Maybe I'll get to visit you, watch you if you come to France, because it's
Yeah, I've
close
been to
by.
France, but not to the Tour de France.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's make that happen
Someday.
someday. Yes. So, um, why I would love to speak with you on this episode, on in this podcast episode, is because you've experienced so much. You're a relationship coach, and before we go into all the thousands of questions I have in my head, because I find healthy relationship to be very vital. But before we go into
Mm.
all of that, I'd like to learn from your life journey so far. Like, I'd just like to know, like, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about navigating relationships while balancing leadership, work, and family and life in general?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a big question. So many things. I grew up on a farm with just a little family, and my dad was a farmer, and we just farmed in the dirt and growing wheat and corn and all kinds of things like that. So I learned a lot about community growing up. And we had a very small community of people. Everybody knew each other, everybody was connected.
Mhm.
But then when I got out in the big world, I found out it was a little tougher to have relationships, and people weren't always as friendly. And, you just
Mm,
have to learn as you go. And then I became a leader, and I found out, oh my goodness, relationships are really important. And yeah, I always say everybody wants to be a leader until they become a leader.
mm.
And then
That's
all the
true.
pressure happens and people have expectations. And so it just makes relationships really, really challenging. So, and I made a lot of mistakes as a young leader, I'll just tell you a story really quick. When I first started my first organization, I had a guy join us and we became fast friends. I gave him a lot of authority and a lot of opportunity, and he did a great job for the most part. And about 4.5 years into that process, somehow I went from being this great leader to him and mentor to I was the enemy. I
Oh.
was like, and I was so confused.
Mm.
I was just like, what happened? I would try to ask forgiveness for whatever I did and own my stuff and whatever. And he would say, oh yeah, I forgive you. And then a week later, it'd be back to the exact same spot where he's upset with me and angry with me. And again, I made lots of mistakes. So this is not all on him. But
Mhm.
at some point, he was just like, I'm done, and tried to take some of our people with him. And that didn't work out, thank God. I learned that, and this is an unfortunate lesson, I learned that people, what they say and what they mean is not always the same thing.
Mm.
And that was really hard lesson, because
Yeah.
growing up, it just wasn't like that. People said what they mean and they mean what they say, and that's the way it was. But I had to learn that, you can't just take everything at face value.
Mm-hmm.
And trust is built.
Mm.
It's built over time. I like to say it this way: trust is built one drop at a time, but it goes away in buckets. You know, it goes away so fast. You can build trust, and then one indiscretion, one lie, one doing something stupid, and all that trust just gets wiped out. And
Yeah.
so as leaders, trust is really our currency. And so it's a big deal that we're constantly investing in that trust account with people.
Mm-hmm.
Showing up on time, doing what you say what you mean, being consistent.
Yeah.
So many people are inconsistent. We're going to do this now, and then next week we're going to do this. And
Mm.
people need consistency in leaderships.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my big lessons is trust.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, that's something that I'm also learning in my journey of life, also, building trust. I mean, trusting myself and trusting
Mm-hmm.
people also. I mean, and also allowing people, giving the people opportunity to trust me myself. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the inspiration or motivation why I wanted to speak with you, because I was like you said already, are very important. Relationships are very, very vital. I'm in the career world. I've gotten to learn that, and I'm learning that every day. With meeting with people and discussing and trying to maybe work on a team, project and communicating with people. Generally, you need to build relationship with them to be able to work with them
Yeah.
properly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
It's the
mm,
lifeblood of everything is
exactly.
relationships.
Yes, it's like
Yeah.
the blood or the net that connects all of us all.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you do it from your experience? Like, from the story you also shared, like, what do you do to then build that relationship with people to ensure that they're able to trust you and, rely on you and follow your leadership also? What do you do to make that happen?
Well, like I said, being consistent, mean what you say what you mean. Don't
Ah, yeah.
overpromise, under promise, over deliver.
Mm.
That is a way better way to lead. But I think though, and everybody agrees with that. Everybody knows that. I think the trust builder that leaders struggle with the most though is owning your mistakes. Because we're all going to make mistakes. I mean, no leader's perfect, no person is perfect, no spouse is perfect, no friend is perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do the wrong thing sometimes, say the wrong thing, whether it's by accident or on purpose or whatever. And a lot of times, leaders in particular have a hard time owning those mistakes
Mm.
because they think, oh my gosh, if I admit that I made a mistake, then nobody's going to respect me.
Mm.
Parents
Yeah.
do that sometimes with their kids. They're like, I can't tell my kids I made a mistake because then they won't,
Yeah.
won't respect me. And I have found that the exact opposite is true. I mean, because when I as a leader or as a parent go to my people or my kids and I say, "Hey guys, I made a mistake." They're not surprised. They already know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not like, "Oh, we never noticed." No, they noticed. And so when you admit it as a leader or a parent, for example, or a
Mhm.
teacher or a boss or a coach or whatever, and you say to your people, you know what, I made a mistake. I was
Mm.
wrong. And will you please forgive me? The trust level goes way up. I mean,
Yeah.
way up because they already know. But if
True.
you don't admit it, they're like, do they not know they made a mistake or did they intend to make a mistake and they're just not telling us? Do they think that we're
Mhm.
stupid? There's all these things that happen in people when we don't admit our mistakes.
That's
And
true.
we think we're hiding it, or we think nobody noticed. They noticed. They noticed when you made a
Yeah.
mistake. Because when you're a leader, everybody's watching everything you do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's a lot of
you own
pressure.
it, and people are like, thank God he realizes it or she realizes it.
Yeah.
So
I think you're totally right, because when you were sharing that right now, I was just thinking about myself personally. From my own experience, I think in my little journey in this year, I got like a kind of role where I had to, like, lead a team, technically lead a team. And
mm-hmm.
two things came up for me basically. One is that I have this fear of making mistakes, so that makes it very
Uh-huh.
difficult for me to make a decision because I don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah. Yep.
I
Yep.
I want it to be perfect, and my boss noticed it, and the people I had to, like, technically lead also were like, "Oh, Toby, you have to make a decision. What's the direction are we going?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, I don't know what to do. Let me analyze this properly. I don't want to make a mistake. The decision I have to make has to be the best one, the perfect one." And the second mistake or thing I had to work on is also being too mystic. Was the feedback I got. Like I'm too
Mhm.
optimistic as a person, and as a technical lead, I think that could be very dangerous for the people that I have to get to lead,
Yeah.
because I'm like, you can do this, then I put a lot of stress on them probably, or make them
Yeah.
do impossible things basically. Yeah, from what you just said basically right now, I mean, being able to admit it and accept it also is, helps me feel more connected with them as
Yeah.
people, and also find out ways to work on myself, improve, and make them feel that they could trust me and not give up and say, no, I can't, we can't work with Toby because he's so optimistic.
Yeah. 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 The other thing too is when you're, as the leader, when you're willing to admit your mistakes, it helps your people admit when they make mistakes.
Mm,
Because if you try to act like you never make a mistake, then they're gonna feel like, oh, I can't tell this person I made a mistake,
yeah,
you know,
that's
and
true.
they need to tell you. You need to
Mhm.
know when people make mistakes. So anyway, it's a big
Yeah,
deal.
it's a big deal, yeah. So I would like to move the topic of relationship to, out of the career world into our personal world right now. I mean, our day-to-day world. In this world where we have a lot of we are it's highly we have high technology basically. We are always on our phones, we're always chatting. The internet is at the tip of our fingers basically, but we still feel very, very disconnected and very, very lonely. So what
Hmm.
can we do? Like what do you think makes people feel this way, even though we have all the Instagram, the TikTok, the Snapchat, everything possible to make us feel connected?
Yeah. It's interesting. There's so many things we could talk about that. I'll just focus on one thing. Connection, human connection, where that we all really want is risky. And one of the things about technology is it tends to take the risk out of things. Like you can be on social media and say horrible things about somebody that you
Mhm.
never see. You're never going to see that person. There's no risk, right?
Yeah,
So you just throw it out there and rip people apart. And I'm not saying you do that, but
yeah, I
people do that.
understand. Yeah.
But here's another one of the sayings I use all the time, but there's no passion without risk. Like if there's no risk, it's like, whatever, And that's what happens in a lot of relationships. Like if you think about a marriage relationship that started off, the people were super passionate for each other at the beginning. They were totally in love. Oh my gosh, we
Mm.
can't even hang up. We're gonna stay on the phone with each other all night, and
Yeah.
it's almost syrupy. It's like you want to throw up, it's so gushy and lovey-dovey and all that. But what is happening there is they're super passionate because they are risking everything. They have put their whole hearts into this relationship and pushed all the chips to the center of the table
Yeah.
and said, I am all in. That's why there's so much passion. So you see a couple like that, and fast forward 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the road, and they're not passionate anymore. What's happened? Well, I'll guarantee you one or both of them has stopped risking their hearts in the relationship. One or both of them has taken a step back and said, you know what, I'm not going to risk anymore. I'm not going to put myself out there like that with you for whatever reason. Could be good reasons or bad reasons. Doesn't matter. When you stop risking, it sucks the passion out of the relationship. And so people live online a lot of times, no risk. I get all these connections. Maybe you're even an Instagram influencer. Who knows? You've got all these followers, but who are you really risking your heart with? And you're really having real conversations with. And when people describe relationships that they really want, they don't use words like boring or regular or the same old, same old. That's not the kind of relationship anybody wants.
Mhm.
When you describe a relationship that you really want, you use words like passion, and you use words like deep love and vulnerability and all those kind of words, because
Mm.
that's where the life is in the relationship.
Yeah.
And so, I think if we're going to have real connection with people, we have to be willing to risk ourselves.
Mm.
And a lot of people have just said, I'm not doing it. I got hurt, I got burned, so I'm not going to risk myself. I'm going to put a wall up. I'm going to keep a distance between me and other people. That way I won't get hurt again. And the problem is it doesn't work. You still get hurt because you got to interact with people. And so you build a thicker wall and a thicker wall. And
Mm.
people have these massive walls up. You know, when you're around somebody and they have a wall up, and it's very common. And they have these walls up. And then you've built these walls because you don't want to get hurt anymore. You don't want to risk anymore. But then you feel alone and you're like, why isn't anybody close to me? Why don't I have any good relation? Well, you've got these walls up. You're keeping everybody at a distance. So now you feel hurt because everybody's far away from you. So we have to take the walls down. We have to be intentional about taking the walls down and risking, even though you are going to get hurt sometimes, because that's the nature of relationships. You are going to get hurt sometimes. But when you have real relationship where both your hearts are fully present to one another,
Yeah.
you're both fully present to the relationship, nobody's hiding, we're fully there, it's worth it, because that's what makes life worthwhile. I mean, that's what makes life worth living. You could have all the success in the world, but if you don't have somebody to share it with, what difference does it make?
No
It's
difference.
nothing.
Yeah.
It's empty. So we have to risk,
Yes.
and we have to risk our hearts. And sometimes we're going to get hurt.
Mm.
Yes, absolutely. You are going to get hurt sometimes.
Mm.
But the reward when you have those really great relationships is so worth it.
Yeah. I mean, what's coming up for me right now when you share that is basically being vulnerable, like putting all your chips in the center at the center of the table, risking it all,
Hmm.
all the time, 10 years into the relationship, 5 years into
Yeah.
the relationship, always risking it or being vulnerable. But I think it's something that is quite difficult for us to do. I don't know why. Can you maybe throw some light on that? Why is it difficult for us to be vulnerable?
I think because we hate pain as
Ah,
humans.
yeah.
I mean, pain is awful. It's
Mm,
terrible. I mean, nobody wants to be hurt. It's like if you touch it, if you're growing up as a kid and you touch a hot stove and you're like,
mm.
whoa, and you're like, I'll never touch a hot stove again. And that makes sense. Like logically, that makes sense
Mm,
in most of life. But life is, as for us as humans, life is all about connection. It's connection. That's what we're made for: connection with God, connection with others. So even though we got hurt, even though we touched the hot stove and we got hurt, we've got to go back and touch the hot stove again, so to speak. And that's the only way you build relationship that's alive and real and vulnerable, like you said. And
mm.
so it's counterintuitive. I think that's why it's so hard. It's like, why
Yeah.
would I do that? Stupid. Well, that you do it because that's where life is.
Mm,
There's
yeah.
there's nothing else that's going to give you that kind of joy when you have that real connection with somebody. There's nothing else like it. And
Mm,
some people never have it their whole lives, and I feel terrible for them. It's why I wrote a book about it, because I want to
yeah.
help people
Yeah.
get that.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to also talk about your book also very soon. But before we go into talking about your book, I would like to ask a follow-up question to that, what you say right now. And you've talked about this already, but you know, a lot of times we get hurt, a lot of times we get, offended because of some things that happen, maybe previous mistakes or previous relationships, and therefore we build up walls. So what can we
Hmm.
do in order to heal from all of this heartbreak or hurt that might have felt from the past? What can we do in order to break those walls down, heal totally, so that we could be whole for a new relationship or open for new connections?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Toby. It's so important too, because a lot of people walk around as wounded warriors. They're
Mm,
just torn up inside. They look great on the outside, but inside they're just dying because of all
yeah.
the hurt and the pain. And part of it is, if you're gonna get healed from anything, you've got to admit how hurt you are. And that's a big challenge for people, because it's like, well, if I actually admit to myself how much pain I'm really in, then I've
Mm,
actually got to deal with it. If I don't admit it, I can kind of shove it aside and not have to deal with it most of the time.
yeah.
But it's coming out in different ways. I mean, we may not think it is, but it's coming out in different ways. It's coming out in keeping people at a distance. Sometimes for some people it's coming out in anger. For some people it's coming out in manipulation or control. There's all kinds of ways that those negative emotions manifest themselves. So the first thing, if you're going to find healing, is you got to step into the light and be really honest about how you actually feel about what happened. Not in a generic way of, yeah, that was hard. No, 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 no. No, how do you really feel? And And that's why counselors and are so valuable a lot of times, therapists, because they kind of draw that out of you. But you can learn to do that for yourself. I read a book several years ago called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. It was so helpful for me because it talked about how those negative emotions that we try to avoid
Mm,
are actually the warning lights on the dashboard of our life
mm,
that God gives us to be able to say, I've got a really negative emotion about this. Where is that coming from? Was I hurt? Did something happen to me? Why do I feel this right now? And
mm,
why would I meet this kind of person? Or when people say this, do I react? What are
mhm.
those triggers that are happening?
Yeah.
And actually doing the work to dig in on yourself to go, okay, let's figure out where that's coming from.
Mhm.
What happened? Why is that going on? I mean, I've done a lot of that work, and it's hard work. Oh my gosh, it's so hard, but it's so worth it because when you go there to that negative that those dark places, and you're honest with yourself, and I'm a person of faith, so I'm gonna throw God into this,
Mm,
and you're honest with yourself and you're honest with God about how you really feel, that's where healing comes. That's where it begins because, God says that he's light, and what does light do? Light makes dark things appear. What you can't see, it
yeah.
opens things up. And when you get vulnerable and open and transparent, that's
Mhm.
where God operates. And I like to say, God will only heal what I'm willing to reveal.
Mm.
So he's a gentleman. He's not going to force you. He just invites you. And so if you're like, nope, I'm not talking about that. I'm not dealing with that. We're not going there. He's like, okay, but whenever you're ready, let me know.
Mm,
And when we do, when we put it in the light, that's where he is. And that's where healing begins. And that's just the beginning of the journey. But that's a critical, crucial part of the journey, is being truly honest with yourself and with God and with others, the appropriate people in your life, to say, here's what's really going on with me. And that's where you can start to find healing.
yeah. Yeah, we have to admit it and be ready for the healing. Yeah.
Hmm.
I think it starts from there's an adage that is just coming up in my mind right now. It's in my mother's language, I believe, Yoruba. And in English it just basically says a madman finds his healing the day he can admit or know that he's mad. The day a madman knows he's mad, that's the beginning of his healing, basically.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's
Yeah,
exactly right.
yeah.
Yep.
Wow. So I'd like to talk about your book because I think we've talked about what you wrote in your book, Unknown, finding the
Hmm.
connection in a disconnected world. We've talked about it a little bit, but I'd like us to talk about it because in your book you talk about going deeper into relationships.
Hmm.
So from your book, what are like some barriers that stop people from going below the surface? I know we've talked about some of them already, but I mean, I would like you to, share about your book and some insight that readers could get from it to break through the surface in their
Yeah.
relationships.
Well, we are more technologically connected than we've ever been in the history of the world. I mean, we carry phones in our pockets with computers more powerful than what took men to the moon. I mean, just think about that. That's
True.
crazy.
Yeah.
And so we were technologically connected. We're online, we're on social media, we're on computers, we're on telephones, all the things, you know. I can be driving down the road and talk to my friends in Africa or Europe,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm driving down the road and I can actually look at them if I want to. I
Mm.
mean, that was science fiction just a few years ago. It's not that
True.
long ago. iPhones came out in what, 2008? I mean, that's not very long ago,
No.
16 years ago. It's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So we're more technologically connected than we've ever been in the history of the world, by far, by far. It used to take to communicate from Europe or Africa to the United States, it would take months to get a letter. Now it's seconds to send a message. So we all know that. At the same time, we have become more relationally disconnected than we've ever been in the history of the world. That's a fact. I mean, I've got studies in my book that you can, whenever it comes out, that people can look at and stuff like that. And COVID only served to exacerbate that problem. People were distanced, people were isolated, and social distancing, all the things. And people were doing school from home as opposed to being in schools together. And people were working from home more. And some of that's still happening. And there's this residual effect from that whole season combined with the technological connections that people I don't know how to I don't think I can fully explain the phenomenon, but it's like people have almost settled into a less connected world. And I think we're worse for it because as humans, we need connection. That's what we're made for. That's what we're designed for. If you ever read any of Brene Brown's books, she does an excellent job talking about how desperately we need to connect with other humans. And without it, we're just not we're not very good people without connection.
That's true.
I mean, the more isolated you get, the weirder you get. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just reality.
that's very true. Yeah.
And so we've created this thing especially in Western culture, more so in Western culture than in Africa or Asia, but especially in Western culture, we're so independently minded. I go to Africa and everything's about community. Everything's
Yeah.
about connection.
Yeah.
In Western culture, it's me against the world and I'm going to take everything on, and we miss what life is really all about. We have teams that go to different countries, especially in Africa from here in the States. And when they first get there, they're like just overwhelmed with the poverty. And then the next day they're like, oh my gosh, I need to help these people. These people need my help. I need to help them. They need what I've got. By the third day, you're kind of just disillusioned and confused. By day 4, you start to realize, oh my gosh, these people are so much happier than I am. And they have so much less than me.
Mm.
And then by day 5, you're like, it's because they're so connected. They're so communal. They're in relationship with each other.
Yeah.
It's Ubuntu, your life is my life and my life is your life. And because you exist, I am. And, all that whole thing, it's just, we've lost so much of that in the West in our independent mindedness. And we lose what makes life really worth living because of that. And so, yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's
Of course, of course. I mean, that's like a plague on its own. I would say, like, everyone being independent on his own and trying to figure out life. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head already by saying the more you distance yourself from people, the more miserable, in my word, you feel, or the more,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
And that's we need that community feeling everywhere we find ourselves. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And we have to
Well,
push past our fears and our pain and all those things that cause us to resist that
yeah.
and risk, like I said at the beginning.
I believe those are the things that are holding us back. But once we can put those in place, then we are able to then um, have good relationship with people out there. Like once we are able to let go of our fear, fear of being
Hmm.
heartbroken or cheated on or just disappointed. Basically, once we're able to let go of that, or just accept the fact that you'll be disappointed anyways,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
then yeah, I think you said that already also. Like build up the wall, don't build up any wall. You will still be heartbroken at any point, you will be disappointed anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I like to, for a listener out there, a question is coming up right now, which is basically for a listener out there who is in a long-term relationship right now at the moment, but at this point they're feeling so stagnant and so boring. And earlier we've talked
Hmm.
about always putting your chips in the middle at the middle of the table and always risking it all. But at this point, yeah, they are risking it all, but it's feeling boring and stagnant. What should they do?
Well, first thing they should do is decide what they want.
Mm,
What do you want? Do you want it to stay where it is or do you want it to move forward? And if you want it to move forward, are you willing to do what it takes to move it forward? You have to just ask yourself some really straightforward questions because honestly, a lot of people, the reason they're in a stagnant relationship is because they kind of like it. It's predictable.
mhm,
I know what I get. Most marriages, um, and I think this is a true across cultures. Most marriages that I run across are stagnant. It's like we get up, we maybe eat some breakfast, we maybe talk about, what's going on with the kids, and then we go to work, and then we come home and we try to figure out what we're going to eat, and we try to figure out what we're going to watch on TV. and run the kids here and there. And then we go to bed and we start over the next day. And it's just the same old, same old. And I'm like, my gosh, but there's some people who like it. So it's a legitimate question to say, what do I really want? Am I okay with it being stagnant? Some people are. I'm not, but some people are. But if you want more, you're going to have to initiate. So here's what happens for a lot of people. It's like, yes, I want more. I need my husband to do this and this and this, or I need my spouse, or I need my partner to start doing this and whatever. And it doesn't work that way usually. Usually you're going to have to initiate. If you want more, you've got to initiate. And if you're waiting on the other person all the time, you become a victim to their choices. I don't want to be a victim. So if I want to move the relationship forward, I got to move out of the victim mode into an ownership mode where I say, you know what, I'm going to own my responsibility in this relationship to take a risk. And it could be, if it's been a long time since you risked, you kind of got to start small. You got to start with, hey, I'd really like to do something different this weekend. Are you open to that? That for some people, that's a risk.
Yeah.
Because it's just been the same thing so long. If you're not quite there and you might be able to risk a little bit more, maybe you could have a conversation where you could say, hey, I'm feeling like we've kind of stagnated in our relationship, and I just want to take ownership for that. I'm part of that, and I'm really sorry. I want more. And how do you feel about that? Do you want more? That's risky, man.
Yeah, that's
That's
risky.
because you don't know what they're going to say, you know? And so then beyond that, it's just starting to build. If they say, yeah, I want more too, I want to take it to the next level, then just start talking about what does that look like? What do we want in this relationship? And, I feel like we've lost some passion. Maybe we need to be more vulnerable with each other. Maybe we need to start telling each other we love each other again.
Yeah.
Or maybe we just need to start telling each other when we're struggling. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it is risky.
Yeah, it's a risk.
But it
Yeah, it's
changes
risky.
everything.
Yeah, it does. It does. I mean, just be open about it. But when you were sharing that, I was like, yes, these are very, very important things for us to do. But something was coming up for me, and that's basically
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
someone might be saying, I'm the one always initiating. I'm the one always coming up with ideas. I'm the one always risking it. Why is it so one-sided? What's your opinion on this? Is it healthy when it's just a partner that is always coming up with new things to do, trying to switch things up a little bit, trying to juice things up a little bit, or
Yeah.
it's a normal thing for one person to always be that and the other person just to follow the flow, basically?
Yeah. So some of that's personality driven. Certain personalities are going to be more initiating than other personalities. And you can say, I'm not going to do that anymore. How's that going to go? You
South.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to go anywhere good. It's not going
No.
to go where you want it to go. So, okay, you're the primary initiator. Okay. That's not that bad. That's not a bad thing if the other person is willing to go there with you. When you initiate, if they're like, okay, yeah, let's do that. Nothing wrong with that. It's just different personalities. And that for years, that's the way it was in my marriage, for example. I
Ah,
was the
okay.
risk taker. I was the initiator about everything.
Mm,
I'm 37 years in now, and I'd say the last 7 years,
mm,
it's both of us initiating and risking. But that was a 30-year process to get there,
yeah. Wow.
So I could have stopped, but boy, that would not have turned out.
No, no, it
So,
won't. Yeah.
you know,
Just keep initiating.
yeah. You can get upset about it, you can get offended about it, you
Mm,
can make it about you, but why? For those of us who are married, when we
mm,
got married, we said, we're all in. That's
mm,
part of the vow, I'm all in.
mm,
Better or worse, I'm
mhm.
all in. So live according to your vows. If you meant it, do it.
Just do it.
And I'm not saying it's easy. There's times when it's hard, and I don't mean to be flippant about it, but
Mhm.
what's the alternative? Not good. So that's where I said at the beginning of this part of the conversation, you got to decide what you want.
Yeah,
And then what are you willing to do to get
that's
it?
very vital. Yeah, that's very vital.
So,
Know what you want. Wow. I mean, Kit, I've learned so much from you from this
yeah.
conversation. I mean, a lot, a lot. I mean, from your answers, you're making me reflect a lot on different conversations I've had with people personally, with friends, also on their
Uh-huh.
relationships, and that just brought up, the questions that I kept on asking afterwards, and it has answered a lot of things for me, shined some light on some things that I have.
Good.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. But I'd like to know what's your vision for a world where people are more connected relationally, and how can we take the first step towards that vision today?
Man, my vision is for us to be a connected people,
Mm,
and move outside of our walls and our issues and our hurts and just say, you know what, this is what matters in life. This is what's important,
mm, mm.
because like I said, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have anybody to share it with, who
Yes.
cares?
Yeah.
So yeah. So I think the first step for a lot of us is exactly what I just said, deciding what you want,
Mm.
and then are you willing to do what you got to do to get it?
I, yeah.
And so take some time, reflect, you know.
Mm.
If
Mm.
you're listening to this and you realize, man, I got some relationship work to do, take some time and reflect about what do you really want and what are you willing to do to get that,
Yeah.
and go for it.
What do you really want and what do you have to do to get it?
Hmm.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to reflect on that, definitely.
I heard a guy say one time, the difference between where you are and where you want to be is
Hmm.
the pain you're willing to endure to get there.
That's deep.
That's true in
That's very
relationships
true.
too.
Yeah, that's very true. Wow. So for people out there who would like to get your book, maybe work with you, connect with you, what's the best way to do this?
Yeah, I think right now keithspurgin.net would be the best way. I've got a little blog there, and the book is not yet published.
Mm.
So I'm working to get it published right now. And as soon as it is, that site will be where it comes out. So yeah, go there.
So I'll place the link to your website in the show notes of this episode. I encourage people out there to click on it. If the book has been published before this episode is released, you get information also on the website. If not, then you could always revisit the website and get the date. But I mean, if you get also the information of the dates of it being published, then we can also update listeners on this also. Thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate speaking with you. I've learned so much from this conversation, and I know people out there have learned a lot, and we'll have a lot of questions to ask, and we'll reach out to you
Thank
also
you.
to ask.
Thank you, Toby. It's been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.